How do I change my name?
You should be able to change your name by clicking in the corner of the picture of yourself, and then it should say rename, and you should be able to do that.
Thank you.
Oops. That's just a few more people coming through. Another Ross Cathcart. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the session. We are just letting people join before we begin. If you look on the screen, I'd encourage you to follow the advice that is there, but definitely make sure that you change your name, because for some reason, my name is appearing as lots of the names on the screen, and I'm not quite sure why that is. Great. Okay, I think what we're going to do is we're going to get started at introducing the session, and then we will let people join as we go on. Would I be able to ask, the recording is started, if the tech team could just double check that to make sure we've got this recorded, that'd be really great. And just give me a flag if that's not the case. First thing to say is welcome to this session. This is part of a welcome to this session. This is part of the Rethinking Economics International inaugural AGM, and we're having this open discussion and session about how we can learn as a network from curriculum change successes in Barcelona. And I'm really delighted to welcome Lucia and Lorenzo to this discussion, who were part of the successful campaign and to launch, that led to the launch of a series of mandatory courses on the climate crisis at the University of Barcelona. In a move thought to be a world first, all 14,000 undergraduate and postgraduate students will have to take this academic course from the academic year of 2024, and also part of the agreement from the university was that it'll devise a training program on climate issues for around 6,000 academic staff and students. And this announcement came after a 7-day occupation by a group from the anti-fossil fuel organization in Fossil Barcelona, of which Lucia and Lorenzo are members of. They are also members of the Research and Degrowth Academic Collective, which is dedicated to research and awareness raising events on degrowth. And I think I speak on behalf of the network when we say we're both inspired by what's going on in Barcelona and also really eager to learn and really excited to learn. And the way this session is going to work is that we're going to hear a little bit from Lucia and Lorenzo. They have a presentation that they're going to deliver us. And then afterwards, we are going to have time for Q&A and question. And then we're going to have a bit of a discussion amongst us as members. Now, apologies, I didn't begin by saying this where I should have, but that this session is taking place in English, but there is also Spanish translation for those that require it. And you can find that by clicking on the interpretation button, which is a picture of a little globe on your screen along the bottom. And we're really excited to welcome Laura, who's going to be providing interpretation for us. As Thais has just said, the strangest piece of housekeeping in a call I've ever had to give. For some reason, and I blame myself, people's names are appearing as my own names, as Ross Cathcart. So if you have a name that is Ross, but you're not Ross, please do change it so we can know exactly who you are. But that is enough from me. I'm really excited to hand it over to Lucia and Lorenzo. Welcome, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Ross. I'm gonna share my screen now. I hope you can see it. I'm not seeing you all, so in case anything goes wrong, just let me know. Okay. So I'm gonna start talking a little bit about well, the most visible moment of the campaign that we had in Barcelona as the End Fossil Collective there. In this presentation, I'm gonna focus mostly on facts, let's say, on the story, and we will keep for later, for the more interactive moments, the more strategic and political part, according to the interests of the audience, I would say. So End Fossil was launched more or less around the March of this year, internationally, though mainly in Europe. And it was born out of the frustration, let's say, of the declining momentum of the youth climate movement that in recent years have filled the streets with millions of people. But recently, this movement has well, declined a little bit, and perhaps the efficacy also of those protests has started to decline. So out of this situation, a few activists decided to launch this new campaign internationally, based on these 3 simple principles: a climate justice framework, a youth-led movement, and the strategy or the tactic of occupying until we win. So occupying specific institutions, universities and schools mainly, with specific demands, and keep the occupation until the demands or some of the demands are met. Today we're going to talk about Barcelona, but over the last few weeks, other occupations happened around Europe. In Lisbon, high schoolers blocked school entrances and glued themselves to doors. In Vienna, there was an occupation, in Granada as well, and a few others around Europe as well. So one interesting thing was for this international campaign was that in each local chapter of the campaign, the collectives could develop their own demands to their own institutions, according to the local, well, the local factors, the local situation, what made more sense. So in Barcelona, we decided to have these 3 demands: one about the university breaking links from fossil banks, the second one breaking links from fossil industries. Well, for fossil banks, we mean banks which invest in fossil fuels, and fossil industries, those that extract and commercialize fossil fuels. And the third one was to create a compulsory course transversal to all degrees on the current socio-ecological crisis. So there was a public call that was made to occupy the university on the 2nd of November. Before that, there were a few open workshops that people could go to. That's actually how we got involved, going to one of these preparatory workshops. But mainly the appointment was on the 2nd of November at the building of the university. That wasn't the same one which got occupied, so as to well, not be too obvious about the occupation strategy. So we walked in the morning to the university historic building, and we occupied. A few of us were able to get inside, very close to the rectorate door on the monumental stairs of the building, and glue themselves and chain themselves there. But well, the majority of us were prevented from doing it, and so we mounted a camping site in yeah, I guess that's how you say it, in the university courtyard. And yes, this was how it looked like. The place was very strategical. This was important because, I mean, this is really the historic building of the University of Barcelona. It is in central Barcelona. It is an impressive building where also, you know, tourists come, pass by and come inside to visit, and all the, let's say, official events of the universities are held there. So it was a lot of pressure to the university to have this bad image of people camping in this historic building when, I don't know, people were invited to an official event of the university, etc. So this is what made the university prone to negotiate with us, talk to us, because if we were in a, I don't know, in a corner somewhere where nobody saw us, well, we wouldn't have built that pressure. These were an image from the first or the second night in which the university, so the negotiations started about the people who were glued and chained inside. So let's say that our condition for them to leave was that we could have further negotiations with the university. At that point, we thought we were the ones asking for the negotiations. That then at the end, the situation flipped a little bit. On the second night, this was the assembly that we had, and well, the university basically presented a 5 to 6 pages document that was full of blah blah blah. I mean, a lot of good statements, but with no content regarding in relation to our demands, and set an ultimatum saying either you accept these or we're going to stop the negotiations and you're going to see what the consequences are. So so we were already, let's say, put a little bit in a tense decision-making moment. But we decided to stay, realizing that probably it was a bluff, and the university the day after would have negotiated anyway again. And that's what happened. And so little by little, well, also the tension went down because they saw we were not vandalizing the place. We were seriously negotiating with them with a, let's say, friendly attitude. And from here, I will leave it to Lucia.
Yeah, another reason why we decided collectively to stay is because this space was also valuable on its own, right? We could say in a way that it was a productive, reproductive, and prefigurative space, in that new ideas and documents were created, but also relationships with other movements, relationships among ourselves, and prefigurative in the sense that we put in practice, for example, direct democracy, radical horizontality. And so as you can see in this image, during the day we were having assemblies, yoga sessions, convivial moments around food, and working groups, for example, on communication and press, but also, for example, on research, for example, on the laws that the university was claiming that will impede them to establish the course, this course on socio-ecological crisis, to prove that there were not such impediments, right? So there was a lot of research going on. And we also had self-organized workshops, such as one on eco-anxiety, and public talks with professors and conversations with other social movements, such as, for example, environmentalist groups, collectives against, for example, the Olympic Games in Catalonia, Peasant Union, Permaculture Project, and many others. And here the important thing was to talk about how our struggles were connected. No, this is not a struggle individualized and like isolated, but it's related to many other socio-environmental struggles. And this was important to understand the occupation not only as a means towards an end, but also as an end in itself. Then at night, the kind of activities we did were not throwing parties and drinking beer, but we actually enjoyed moments of conviviality, film screenings, also traditional folk music concerts, such as in the image, even like singing together like activist songs in an improvised choir. And to warm us a little bit, since the weather was starting to get cold, we also organized communitarian hot chocolate. That was also a strategy to attract the university students that were passing by and who perhaps were a little bit shy, but who then, of course, refused our chocolatada, and it was a good strategy to bring more students into the fight. Here, there is another particularly meaningful moment. You can see there a professor of the university that after an assembly, he was giving as a gift to the assembly a millennial olive oil bottle of Catalonia, which, as he said, was a millennial oil for a millennial struggle, the environmental one. And here it's important to highlight the importance of the solidarity of professors. That proved essential for the success of the struggle, not only thanks to the more than 200 signatures that we collected among them, but also because they informally advised us on a number of very strategic issues. Another particularly moving moment was when a struggle of pensioners that were protesting outside the university, and they joined us inside. As you can see, they were a lot of people, like 100 or even 150 people, and it was very, very moving because they remarked the continuity of the struggle, no, from when they were very young in the Spanish transition towards democracy, fighting for freedom, to our struggle today that was possible exactly because of that. In the last few days of the occupation, we put a lot of effort in very intense negotiations in which there was going on this back and forth document, and we were negotiating basically every comma. For example, whenever they would say that they committed to establish this course, this module, we would add a special commission of professors that we name that will oversee the contents, no? And then they say, okay, but maybe these professors don't want to be inside this commission. So we have to open it to be formed by other members. And then we said, okay, but our members have to be at the majority and also have to have the presidency of this commission. So this was a back and forth document And this is just an example of the kind of negotiations we had on this 6 pages document, on every paragraph, basically. And at the end, we got to this situation because we understood that this was the best we could achieve. First, the first demand was not achieved. We didn't achieve much in terms of the linking from fossil banks. In this case, is the strong relationship with Banco Santander. The second one, we can say we achieve like breaking the silence and starting a process in terms of the linking from fossil industries. In the case of the University of Barcelona is specifically Repsol. And the third one is the one that they committed to develop this course. This is a compulsory course transversal to all degrees of the university on the sociological crisis. And here it was very important, this framing, this name, and not just sustainability. Just to end, we achieved this partial victory, no, we can say. And there, a fundamental aspect was the international resonance that can work as an inspiring precedent for many other similar struggles, like the one of Rethinking Economics. And if you want, we can answer any questions and maybe discuss more in depth, like the strategies and the specificities of the struggle.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that presentation. And I'm sure there are lots of questions percolating and people will have lots of things they want to pick up on there. But I'm going to take advantage of facilitator privileges and kick us off with the first question. And it's really about kind of maybe your both your personal journeys in the I'd be interested to know kind of what your journey to this point has been. Like, have you been involved in the climate movement previously? And, you know, kind of what other tactics were you used there? And I guess the point I'm getting at is what led you to take such direct action in the form that you did in Barcelona?
Personally, yes, I had been involved before in the climate justice movement. Actually, I was in London when Extinction Rebellion started. So until, let's say, the pandemic, I was living there and participating in Extinction Rebellion. And then, and then I moved to Barcelona. And when I was here, I just, as I said, joined one of these workshops before the occupation, somehow for curiosity of this new campaign that was... we received, I guess, a message about it from a friend, and we went, and then, I don't know, it was promising. Also, we are PhD students, so let's say our role was a little bit, was important somehow, because we were,
especially in the beginning, no, because we didn't have this strong support from professors, and we were kind of the ones who could play a little bit this role towards like press, because we are teaching, we are PhDs. It's not just a struggle of some degree students, which is fair enough, no? But like it was nice, no? It was the beginning of a little bit more diversity in the participants, and no, I wanted to say that I think it was interesting this because of those fights and movements 2 years ago, already built like this common sense that this is the way to go, no? This is the common sense even in the high representatives of the university. So in a way, like a professor was telling us that this 10 years ago, like the police, they would have sent the police, and like the occupation probably would have lasted like a day or two. And in this case, they knew they couldn't do this because this is common sense, right, already. And so I think it came at the right moment, and because of the aesthetics, it was like disturbing a lot. And
even if the numbers were not high, it must be said we were about 30 people occupying the university. So that's very little compared to the million of people who went to the streets in 2019. But those people created the conditions, this common sense that Lucia was talking about, so that even 30 people can be powerful in making such a change happen.
Amazing. I'm now going to open up to questions from the participants in this call. So if you we'll maybe take them two at a time. So if you have a question, please go down to the reaction section and raise your hand. If you would like to ask the question in English or Spanish, the easiest thing to do if you'd like to ask it in Spanish is maybe to post it in the chat, and then we'll take it from there and we can do the translation that way. But feel free to post it in the chat as well if you'd like to ask in English, or unmute yourself. So if people would like to raise their hands if they've got any questions that they would like to ask Lucia or Lorenzo. I see two hands up, and we'll start off with Karen, and then afterwards we'll go to Thais.
Hello. Yeah. So how did you start this? Did you join together with other groups, so you have more like already a broader base, or was it more of a spontaneous thing? Thank you.
I'm bringing a question from someone watching on YouTube, actually, who's wondering how did you get the pensioners involved? Do you know what I mean?
So in terms of the first question, if I understood correctly, so the movement was built, let's say, from some people who, let's say the campaign was created in Barcelona by some people who were already involved in the climate justice struggle before, with Extinction Rebellion or with Fridays for Future, and they kind of got together and launched this new campaign that attracted also people who were not involved before. At the university, I think contacts were made with other collectives in the university, but it was pretty autonomous as a struggle at the university. Then when we were there, we later had the support and the solidarity of other collectives as well. Yeah, I hope this answers your question.
And the second question, the pensioners, they were actually doing their demonstration outside the university, which is a continued demonstration. It was not just once. No, they are super organized. They have their songs, their speeches, their t-shirts. They are like making a lot of noise. And I think at some point one of us probably was like trying to get some students, and they are super open, they are super supportive, and they knew about the struggle, and they were right there, like 1 minute away, so they decided to come. We kind of organized it a little bit. Some of them came before, and we were talking with them, and then they arrived like singing and making a lot of noise, because in the end, you know, like we were not that many, and it was like a powerful moment with speeches, very, very moving speeches, and yeah, kind of also this intergenerational connection, no, that sometimes is missing, and it was a beautiful moment.
Amazing, and thank you, Karen and Thais, for those questions. I've got one question from Bandili, which I'll read out as he isn't able to unmute himself. And I see another hand from Nuhaila. Nuhaila, would you like to go first in asking your question?
Yes, sure. Am I audible to you guys? Great.
If you could turn on your video, we can bring you up to the stage. But if you can't, that's absolutely fine as well.
I can't. My connection is pretty unreliable, so I have to cut it off.
Your voice is perfect. Go
My
off.
apologies. My question is kind of similar to Karen's in terms of base building. How did you recruit the crowd of participants? Was it, I mean, you showed the flyer or the poster that I'm guessing you put up everywhere in the university, but was it also like word to mouth, social media, and also like what were the characteristics of the crowd? Was it mostly like environmental studies students or also students from other disciplines who somehow you got into this struggle? Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll read out the question from Bandile, which was, what were your feelings and emotions as a team during any difficult parts of the campaign? How did you push through and how did you handle any disagreements?
So my feeling is that the fight was like this little small community was built from previous movements, from Fridays for Future, from Extinction Rebellion, and there was not a lot of I think promotion. I think I have the feeling that we were building everything on the way, like everything, like the communication channels, the social media networks, even the research. We became better and better on the research of the specificities of the university. Like, so I mean, I think we could have done much more on this, on like getting on board more people, but it was not that. I had this feeling that it was not that easy, because I also probably was not the best moment because the students were having exams at some point during the occupation, and in the end, you don't need to stay, of course, from the beginning to the end, but one of the things that we needed was like people staying overnight, and this of course implies, and this connects to the second question, a little bit of effort, like it's kind of energy draining, especially after a few days. And that was also one of the reasons why we decided to stop occupying, because we already had this third demand, and we said, okay, let's stop, let's rest, and then we come back for the others, for the other demands. And in terms of feelings and emotions, I mean, it's very personal, no? But I have the feeling that we were able to create, because it was a very small, I had this little bit feeling of like a small family that was created, of course, some people coming, some people leaving, but because it was a small group, we could know each other by name and create these moments of singing, like music always, it's a cohesion, tool. But also, of course, like we were super tired at some point. At some point, we were very tired and also cold. That was difficult. At some point, it's like some people went to sleep to other places, and we had this, how do you say, like a water bag to warm ourselves. Sometimes was difficulties. Also, like having this feeling of how slowly institutions change, and we really thought that the Repsol cátedra, the linking from fossil industries was gonna happen, and we realized that was not the case, and realizing how slowly things change was very demotivating at some point. but also then you had these all the moments, no? And yeah, I don't know if that answers, but it was kind of a messy reply. But maybe you have other feelings or reflections.
Maybe, I mean, I agree with everything you said. Maybe I can adjust. Yeah, in terms of disagreements, sometimes it's difficult to know when to stop, as Lucia was anticipating. So I guess possibly the most tense assemblies, I think, were a couple. The first one, when we got this ultimatum, like, oh, we will stop negotiating if you don't leave. And some people were like, oh, we really need to. I mean, and there it's when you need to be a little bit, you need to dare a little bit more, but then you also know when it's the time to stop daring, because you realize that there is no more way to do at this stage. And there is also, maybe you're also not as strong as at the beginning, and some people were starting to burn out, like the media team. And also, I mean, the struggle doesn't end with the occupation. Actually, the moment the occupation ended, we started working almost double, because then we got this victory. And so like a lot of press work and a lot of, I mean, now we are keeping the pressure high with the university, because one thing is to write in a document, an official document, that you're going to do something, but that doesn't really mean that they're 100% going to do it, unless we keep, I mean, we need to keep the pressure very high for this to happen. So this is what we're up to at the moment.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we had this workshop on eco-anxiety, but also like beyond that, like non-productive moments, because we were working a lot during the day. As I said, like I think we even, like during the occupation, we got to know things that we didn't know about the university, links about a lot of very specific details, like working a lot with the computers and everything. And I think it was more during the nights that we managed to create these non-productive moments where also like other students went home and the university was kind of empty. We were only us, no? It was also like very cool to be camped there in this historical building, beautiful building that you will never, something that you will never do, no? So it was also like taking advantage of this moment and to be with these people and build these connections that now are these networks, these even personal connections are the ones that now are so important to follow, because now we are not anymore together and you are not anymore there. You have to keep on with your life, with your work, with your studies, and it's very important that you actually want, for personal reasons, to go to an assembly tomorrow, for example, no? So I think that was key.
And can I ask, so it's really interesting hearing the kind of moments of despair, excitement, unproductiveness, when certainly for, I'm speaking for myself, but as someone who wasn't at the occupation, that doesn't live in Barcelona, the way you hear about it is a moment of ecstasy. You see the headlines in the Guardian. I think when I was at a meeting when it came out and we all cheered and we were like, yes, this is great. It was like just an interesting observation for when you're in it. And sometimes I imagine the emotions are far more diverse and negative as well as positive as how people receive that information. But I was just interested by one thing you said about kind of the nature of the demands that you had of the university, and to what extent they were met in the concessions they made. Because I understand that bit about delivering them on making sure they deliver on what they've said. But were there further demands you were asking for? Are they going to be part of the future work that you do, or were these the demands you set and you were happy you achieved?
Well, so we everything is available in this document that was signed by the rector, in which the three themes are touched upon. The one on the banks, the main problem is that the relationship is so tight in all public universities in Spain that it wasn't up to the university to change that. They cannot do it. So that's where we actually we understood the point, and so we started to move to the let's say the representative politics sphere. So a couple of representatives were invited to the Catalan Parliament and gave a press conference there about this, and some left-wing political parties decided to well follow up this request and try to get the fossil banks and more generally banks actually outside of the public university.
The only thing we got in that point from the university is their commitment to bring the topic to a general rector's university, like a reunion of a lot of universities in Spain, to just start talking about it, which is, I mean, that we already knew that was the most difficult one, the banks.
The third one, I mean, I guess we already talked about it, so I'm not gonna say more about that, apart from the fact that we need to insist. And the second one, the one on Repsol, that is the single most polluting company in Spain, is the one that we are very still frustrated about, and that we are still pressuring a lot, and we will be pressuring more, especially because Repsol really only gives the university 35,000 euros a year, and in exchange they put their name to the ecological transition professorship. So they do an incredible work of greenwashing with only 35,000 euros per year. So we are really outraged about that, and outraged about the fact that it really seems difficult to change this, because it's kind of the red line that they put, and they said we're not going to change this. But the university is open, let's say, at least we must recognize, to talk to us. So we had a meeting with important representatives of the university after the occupation to talk through this, and we are trying hard, and I mean, if it's needed, we will occupy again.
Yeah, there we have conducted, I think, a number of
I think there are other questions.
Okay. Well, yeah,
No, sorry, Louisa.
No, it's just like we have done many other things after the occupation, no? Like sending emails, more meetings that was a requisite, no? Before ending the occupation, like, okay, you have to get this, like organize this meeting with high representatives of the university to talk this with us, and at least, of course, we lost the power of negotiation, but at least you're gonna listen to us. In this case, Repsol is the most polluting company in Spain. There are a lot of arguments about this, like also this specific professorship had a very dark history where the director of this professorship was also a member of the board of government of Repsol at the same time. Like, there were a lot of good arguments, and also this professorship was gonna be renewed. It's not that, I mean, we had this information previously, we researched this a little bit, and we really, and also from other teachers, other professors, that we thought it was weak and that we could actually make it fall. And then we actually saw how difficult things are to change.
And sorry, I want to add one little thing, but it's also like discursively is funny how like later at the last meeting they were telling us, oh, but you did free advertisement for us about this compulsory course, because of course, I mean, the University of Barcelona suddenly looks like the vanguard internationally, the vanguard university, and we were, yes, exactly. So why don't you trust us on the fact that a wave is coming in terms of delinking yourself from fossil industries, and that you following Princeton and a few other institutions that already started doing it, you can be one of the first universities in Europe doing this as well. But that suddenly is a little bit more difficult for them to see.
So many useful and interesting things around like the relationship between courses and kind of the structure of the university. I think also not taking professors' claims at their word and really problematizing them and question them. Lots that we're maybe going to pick apart and talk about later in the session. We're going to try and do one last round of questions, and I see there's a few people that have asked them before, and I think we're going to have time to do them. But I just want to I see a hand up from Anna that we'll go to in a second. But is there any questions from people that haven't had a chance to ask them? There may be a chance to do so a little bit at the end, but I just want to give people the opportunity that maybe haven't asked any questions yet. We'll try and go through them in 2 lots quickly, if that's possible. So I'm going to say Anna and Amara, if you want to ask your questions first.
Sure, thanks, and congratulations so much on this campaign. I have a question regarding the amount of, or the selection of the professors that are now contributing to, assess and make up this new subject. I read that there are a bunch of ecological economists. So did you participate in choosing or selecting the professors, and did some professors maybe join because they wanted to? How was this selection done?
Amazing. And Amara?
Great. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I think it's been really inspirational. I'm just wondering if, looking back, obviously, at the successes of the occupation, if there's anything that you would change or do differently in a more effective way, what would that be? And that's just me thinking selfishly, obviously, in terms of advice that you could give to those of us who are also struggling with really strong institutional ties and obstacles. Thank you.
I think let's go with those 2 questions, and then
So in terms of the first question, we actually proposed all of those names to the university, to the institutions, because we know that they are at the same time renowned academics that the university itself can recognize as their own good academics, let's say. One is a member of the IPCC, but also they have an interdisciplinary perspective because, for example, one comes from an arts department. But this makes our point that the socio-ecological crisis is not only something technical. It's not a sustainability course. It's something systemic and transversal that needs to be approached from a lot of different perspectives, and it doesn't need to end up being a greenwashing course. So we propose those names, and as Lucia was mentioning, we had a bit of negotiation over those names, to what extent they would be leading. And right now we are actually in the process of also, some of them we knew they were happy to be part of it. Others we contacted them now because parallelly to the university that will convoke them to do their official work as a commission. We also want to meet, let's say, more informally or outside of this process with them as a collective, as campaigners, and say, this is how we imagine this course, this is why we did this is why we gave your names. Then of course they would be independent to do their job, but it's important for us also to have this communication, and so we are in the process of doing that.
Yeah, I just would add that apart from being really renowned scholars in their discipline area, I think had a little bit of, we selected them to be a little bit also with a critical lens, no? Because one of the things that we received from the vice-rector as the representatives of the university was that they actually didn't know what was the socio-ecological crisis. They knew what is sustainability, but what is this thing that you're talking about? So we said, okay, don't worry, there is a commission that knows this. And so we knew that these people, some of us visited during the occupation, some of them visited us, but some of them, for example, signed the letter of support. Others, we knew that they are kind of critical and they knew what we are talking about. And now that we are kind of in communication, we see that there is a lot of enthusiasm, and they feel honored to be in this commission, and they feel this is important. So I think with that we did a good job, I think. And about the second question, my answer is more research beforehand, more research on very specific, of course, like there are things that we could never imagine that we had to research, but to have a more maybe coherent negotiation strategy from the beginning, like being very specific, being kind of maybe also trainings to the people occupying, to know exactly what are the arguments we are using, what are the arguments we are not using, like to have a little bit of coherent discourse as a group. This is what I would say, but probably there are other, maybe more promotion, more trying to get to more students. This was also, I think there is something more to do in this case, I think. Yeah. I don't know.
Amazing. Nahela and Karen, I think we're going to add time at the end for a question if that's all right, because I think we're going to do some discussion before we come back and hopefully bring that time together. Thank you for those amazing questions. They were really those answers, sorry, really amazing. There was one I just want to give a little bit of time to that was asked on the YouTube stream, which is, do you know exactly what the senior academics you won for your cause did for you in the background in internal discussions with university administration or the rector's office?
So good question.
No, I mean, we don't know exactly, of course, because I mean, there must be something we don't know. I doubt that professors directly talked to the, well, who knows, but yeah, we don't know for sure. I mean, we know well, there is certain at the beginning of the signature collection, for example, I mean, it's harder to get the first 50 than the last 150 because professors also fear a little bit, there is a lot of precarity in the university, and it wouldn't be the first time that because of the political activism, professors get some pressures from above. So that wasn't always easy. We then know of other professors who surely did a lot of work with us, and that's, I mean, we highly appreciated that. But it was more with us than with the university, I would say. Maybe telling us how professorship works, how actually new courses can be implemented. The university would say something. We don't really know because we have never created a course, and professors do know how to create a course, and so can tell you, yeah, actually this can be made and this cannot.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this really, really amazing discussion. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to a bit of reflection and discussion time in smaller groups about what this means for our campaign at Rethinking Economics. So I'm just going to post some information in the thread here. The first thing I'd ask is that if you would like to have this conversation take place for you in Spanish, please change your name so it begins with ESP, and then Tom on tech will be able to put you in the right room. So if you could just do that while I'm speaking, that would be really useful. But I've just posted a link to a Google sheet there. And when you go into the groups, if you could designate a note taker, just so they can take any notes of really amazing epiphanies or eureka moments that you've had. It doesn't need to be essays in great detail, but just like the useful parts of the discussion. You will be assigned to a breakout room, and your breakout room will have a sheet. So if you're in breakout room 1, you're sheet 1. Hopefully that is intuitive. And I'm going to ask you to discuss some of the questions below and really encourage you to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to speak. Hopefully, this is a really exciting opportunity because everyone in this session is an active member of the Rethinking Economics Network from different places around the world. And this will be a really great opportunity to think about some of the things that we've learned today. And the questions we're going to look at are, what are the key lessons that Rethinking Economics should take from what we've heard today? Are there any tactics or practices that we could or should implement in Rethinking Economics? Are there any concerns that this sort of action raises? This isn't meant to be a place where you can't share those concerns. I think, as we've heard here, fear and being approaching something that is very new and kind of confrontational does raise emotions that aren't always euphoric and positive, and it's really useful to talk about them. And also, if you have anything else to share, it'd be really useful to have those in your breakout rooms. Now, Tom, would you be able to make those conversations go for 12 minutes rather than 15 minutes? I know that's a slight change, but just so we've got enough time to do some feedback. So in a second, if you're in the Zoom call, you're going to be invited to to join a breakout room. Click the link that's on the chat and have a bit of a discussion with the people in your group. Introduce yourselves, nominate a note taker, and nominate someone who's going to feed it back to the group. If you're watching along on the YouTube link, we're going to be gone for about 10 minutes, but we'd love to see you back in about 12 minutes, where we continue the discussion in the main plenary. So if you want to open the breakout rooms, Tom, when you're able to, that would be great. You can't hear anything, but the whir of Zoom is in action, and the breakout rooms are being formed, I am sure. The other thing to do, while we have a minute, is if for some reason you are called Ross Cathcart, this isn't my ploy to take over the world. Please change your name, but you now should be able to join a breakout room. Louise and Winfred, have you been able to join a breakout room? And perfect. Apologies. Is it in the top, in my top corner? I think your name on Zoom is Ross Cathcart, but I'm not. Is it? Are you able to join your breakout room? Hi, Alfred. Are you able to join your breakout room? If you click breakout rooms on the bar along the bottom of your screen, you should be able to join one of the rooms. It should give you the opportunity to. So we're going to take about 8 minutes. We don't quite know how to pause the live stream, so we're gonna be live streaming. I'm just gonna turn off my video, and we'll see you all back here in about 8 minutes.
Hi, Ross.
Hi, Malavi. Are you okay?
Yes, I think I got kicked out of the breakout room, but I'm trying to see if I could join back myself. I was in room 2.
Yep. You should be able to join now.
Okay, no problem. Yeah.
Speaking on mute. I think that's everybody very shortly joining us.
See.
Amazing. Welcome back, everybody. I'm sure that wasn't enough to kind of like fully like really express everything you want to express and kind of share everything you want to share. But we're now going to have a chance to talk about this as a collective. Now, one of the things that I'd asked was that if in your breakout room, you could assign someone who was going to feed back from your group. Now, if you were that person that was assigned to kind of feed back and talk about what you said, would you be able to raise your hand? And if you didn't assign anyone to do that role, would you like to volunteer from your group? And again, do that the same way by raising your hand. And Paddy, if you could just spotlight those people who raised their hands and bring them up to the stage. Nahila, you won't be on. You won't be able to see you on the stage, but please unmute yourself and kind of take part in this chat. So that's Anna and Eric and Nahila. And if there's anyone else that I've missed out, please feel free to raise your hands, and then we'll get started. Lucia and Lorenzo, we're going to bring you back in before the end, but we're just going to hear some of these reflections. So maybe let's take this question by question, but Nahila, Eric, or Anna, what were the kind of key lessons that your group talked about that we should really learn from what we've been learning and from what we've been talking about today? And Karen as well. Hello.
I guess.
No.
Oh, sorry. I hate when this happens. I guess the major takeaway for Ari here is that it is possible. Like, this sets a huge precedent for curriculum reform that, as far as I know, wasn't there before. Like, it was never heard of for a meager 30-person group to like completely shut down the university and institutionalize such an incredible piece of reform to the curriculum. So I think the major takeaway for us is that it is possible, that with power, with even just a group of a few people, it is actually possible, and like some good strategy, some good research. We also said how impressive it was that you guys kind of did things as you went, the research, the press, the comms. So it was just like a small group of people, you achieved like this great thing. So I think that's a huge lesson for us all here.
Definitely. Any other lessons from the other groups? Eric and then Anna.
So, and Elsa and Winfred, please do correct me if I'm butchering your points. But the main takeaway from RE Finland, for example, was that they wanted to get more students involved, as they're currently very much non-student based, and that then really sort of like gets the engagement going at universities. Whereas sort of like RE Zambia said that sort of like, in order for curriculum change to happen, they would need more local groups, as it's then easier to engage with lecturers. So there's very much a country specific nuances that we also should and could be aware of whilst planning this. So there's no such thing as a one size fits all. And I think in that context, from applying it today to the Barcelona talk, that student-based movement and the local focus really is something to take away from.
Yeah, no, I hear you and I agree on that. And also some of our thoughts were just like, we are aiming for bold change. So we need tactics that are bold, and that curriculum reform doesn't only happen through direct engagement in the economics or whatever science department that you want to change.
That's a lovely. We're looking for bold change, so we need bold tactics. I love that.
Maybe one more thing, that it's important to understand the structure of the institution, so that you can have a good strategy about it and then find the best approach, so that their approach was really good for their situation, but maybe in other situations and contexts, other approaches would fit better. So that it's just important to know the situation and then find the right approach for it.
Yeah, and maybe that leads us on to kind of the next question that we talked about in our groups. And maybe it's easy if I bring you in, but also feel free to kind of respond to what people have said and have a bit of a more conversational approach as well. But the next question, which leads on well from what you said, Karen, is looking at maybe the tactics or practices that were so successful in the University of Barcelona, namely this direct action, this strategic occupation of a building. That's something that Rethinking Economics has never really engaged in, but has very clearly worked in curriculum change. It's one of the kind of key things that we're pushing for. And I wondered what was shared or thought about in your groups on that question.
Well, some of us also raised that we should look into interdisciplinary solutions, and also gather forces through looking at interdisciplinary support and get inspired by other social movements and dare to experiment with activism. So for Rethinking Economics, it would mean that the network also works on how to encourage us to engage with other organizations and share tactics. Actually, just what we're doing right now, I guess.
Eric, Nahila, Karen, feel free to jump in on this question of, the tactics or practices that we could or should implement in Rethinking Economics based on what we've heard today, or based on other things that were brought up in your conversation. Eric?
So I think a point that RE Finland, that Elsa made, I think was quite interesting, which was more indirect, but it's sort of like focusing on certain regions first that are easy to win, in the sense that RE Finland said we needed to focus on the capital region first to engage students there, and then go somewhere else. And that's sort of like an interesting approach if you think about what are the easy battles to fight first, and then focus on the harder ones later on, once you've gained momentum. And I think then it's easier, as we've seen with Barcelona, to sort of like with only 30 students to actually make some change, whereas the that was then relatively easy to do.
Nahila?
Yeah, in our group, we reflected on sort of internal strategies or practices within the participants of the occupation. Like, we loved how the occupation was like really structured, and you had a schedule of conversations, downtime, working groups. So like making the occupation productive. And you mentioned how like you were doing a lot of the research as you go. So like involving everybody in that effort must have created like a democratic governance, but also must have been like really productive. And then another practice is obviously like creating cohesion with, you mentioned the hot chocolate and the music, to not only like, you know, like the famous saying, if I can't dance, it's not my revolution, like to make revolution fun and also avoid burnout, I think is not only a great tactic, but also like a necessary one.
Speaking on that point, Nahila, one thing that really struck me was that sense of the way that Fossil managed to engage with the wider kind of community around them, and the example of the pensioners coming into the space. It was like not a campaign that wasn't shut off from what was going on in the community, in the space around them, and I think that was very, very powerful. I'm going to invite up for the. Oh, sorry, was there someone else on the stage? Was there another point you want to add just before we
Yeah, maybe one more thing, a bit contrary to RE Finland's idea. Our group had the idea that it's more important to focus on how connected the groups are rather than the number of groups. So within for example, RE groups, so that within the group we support each other, and that everyone can make a little contribution out of that, something bigger can happen, but also that the RE groups are connected with each other. So yeah, and that's maybe more important than to have many different groups that don't even know each other.
Amazing. Thank you very much to the people that have fed back. I'm going to keep you on stage just for a final kind of little reflection, which was, I'm going to invite Lucia and Lorenzo back to the stage again, because one of the questions we asked was about like concerns that this sort of action raises, which are legitimate. This sort of stuff is sometimes out of our comfort zone, as I said before, kind of, you know, is scary. But that heading that fear straight on is really important and really good for our campaign and the success of it. And I don't know if there was any like of these points, like concerns or further questions that you just had that came up in your groups that it would be useful to ask Lucia and Lorenzo before we end the session.
No.
So again, that's an offer extended to Nahila, Eric, Anna and Karen, if there was big questions that came up or concerns that came up in your discussions, are there things that you would be useful to kind of ask Lorenzo and Lucia while we have them in the Zoom room?
Yes, I guess I'll go. Sorry, I've been super chatty, but this is all like super interesting. I was wondering, like, speaking of concerns, I was wondering if the university had not responded to your sit-in, or had called the police, or had refused to initiate the negotiation process, did you guys have like a contingency plan to escalate, or any like escalation tactics that you had in mind?
So it's gonna be a funny answer, but at the beginning, I didn't think we would go anywhere with this occupation. Like, I really went to this occupation and thought, like, this is either we're not even make it to occupy it, or it's gonna last 1 hour. I never thought it would actually last 1 week, and we would even celebrate some victories. I'm not aware because we kind of joined on the go. So I'm not aware if there were, if someone had in mind some contingency plans. What I can say is that, well, we had discussed about the police possible intervention. And the majority of us, and especially the people who know well Barcelona, etc., told us the police is not gonna intervene inside the historic building of the University of Barcelona. If it was the other University of Barcelona, the police comes in all the time. But for some, historic, cultural reason, whatever, the police was not expected to come at any point. And this, of course, helped us a lot in terms of negotiation power, because we knew, they could kick us out only either by negotiating or by tiring us somehow, so our worst enemy was the energies going down and people going down, not the police, we kind of thought. And
Eric, is this a question? Eric, feel free to go.
It depends whether we have time for the question.
Just a feeler from Karen and Anna and Nahela. Was there any other big areas that you would like to talk about as well? I think feel free to shoot, Eric. Go for it.
Lovely. So I was right now thinking about sort of like escalating it further as well from a university side. And there's the reference point of, I think, a climate protest at Volkswagen in Wolfsburg, where Volkswagen just shut down all lights, heating and water access, and therefore sort of like, made the protest sort of like diminish the effort, diminish the psychological negotiation power there. Was that at any point of time like a fear, a worry that they would sort of, I don't know, turn off all electricity and water and anything in the building and heating?
So one of these moments was when but it was not like that. Like we had water all the time, we had electricity, but at some point we started to occupy on Wednesday, I think, and we didn't thought that was gonna last during the weekend, but the university told us that we were gonna be locked in during the weekend, from Friday night to Monday morning Monday, no? So at that point, like, there were some logistics complications with logistics going on. Like, we of course needed food inside before that, a lot of food, and like everything. If we wanted to stay, like, you have to stay, because during the week you can stay one night and then you leave and then you come back. But there was like more like locked in. In the end, it was not like that. It was not so strong. We had very good relationship with the guards, no, of the university. I think they didn't have very strong mandates from the university, and this is the feeling I had. And it was not that terrible in that way. So I would say the university was not very, because of course, like, they know we could say this in social networks, and that will be, I don't know, they were not very confrontative with this, no? Or maybe not very smart.
Did they tell you in advance that you'd be locked inside on the weekend?
Yes.
Yeah, and they told us the times. Afterwards, they say, okay, well, you can go out, but only in this time frame. And after, I don't know, 10, no one can come in, no? Like, they kind of told us the rules.
But you are right that, one thing we thought, for example, was access to the toilets. They could have closed the toilets. They would have, and it's true that, between not doing anything, that's basically what they did, and calling the police, there are all these intermediate things that they could have done that would have made our lives much more difficult. So yeah, I need to be aware of that as well.
Yeah.
I'm going to sadly have to bring our conversation to a close. Before I kind of do some final following up points, get your literal hands out, get your clapping emojis out, and just give a huge thank you to Lucia and Lorenzo for coming today, but also like the immense knowledge and like generosity you've shown in giving so much of your experience and knowledge. It is so valued and so appreciated. We will be in touch, I'm sure, in some ways. I'll find ways if people have further questions they can ask you, but it's been, to say the least, really inspiring, and not expiring, really inspiring, and hopefully is like the start of some really interesting strategic discussions for us within Rethinking Economics International. The other shout out is just to say this has been recorded, and we'll be sharing the recording with you in the next week or so. If you've kind of been really intrigued by some of the stuff you've heard today and want to talk about it further, please get in touch with me. I will put the email in the chat, and I can put you in touch with the End Fossil movement if that would be useful. More so than that, or not more so, in addition to that, we hope this session has been really useful. I feel it's been really useful. So if in future you have particular tactics or organizations that you think this format event would work really well with, please get in touch with me and we can work out how to facilitate and deliver it, because it's been really great, and that is in no small part down to Lucia and Lorenzo and all the amazing contributions you've given. Thank you so much. Oh, maybe the final thing to ask is, Lucia and Lorenzo, what's the best way to support or stay in touch with the End Fossil campaign?
Stay in touch. Here, yeah, you can maybe share. You can follow the social networks that an amazing team of media is every day creating content and a lot of news there, Twitter, Instagram. There you also have the email, and don't hesitate to contact either like the collective or personally Lorenzo or I, if we can help, or if you need more information of anything that could help other struggles, let us know. And yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone for your amazing contributions. And until the next time, we'll see you soon. And thank you to everyone who did the tech, for Laura on the translation. So really appreciated, and we'll see you at an event soon. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Adeo,
Thank you so much.
Goodbye.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.